held its party elections, which saw incumbent Vice President Datuk Seri Muhammad Khalid Nordin returning to the post. Joining him are Pahang Menteri Besar Datuk Seri Wan Rosdi Wan Ismail and Titiwangsa MP Datuk Seri Johari Abdul Ghani, making the lineup for the three vice presidents in the party. Political analyst Dr. Asmi Hassan weighs on UMNO's election results and how it will impact the party this term.
Firstly, on the vice president, I think that's what UMNO really needed, because among the three winners, the candidates, I think it represents UMNO itself, or it represents what a political party needs. When I say that, it is because among the three of them, they have different standing in their political views, and they are very vocal in voicing out their opinion, not only which are pro the president or deputy president, but which are what the UMNO need right now. So I'm quite happy with the vice president lineup, but not so for the Supreme Council lineup, because as we can see, majority, I would say 80% from the 25 of the Supreme Council candidates are more towards pro-president. But we have to remember, the Supreme Council not only consisted of the 25, but it will consist of the three vice presidents and the ketua penerangan of each state, and more importantly, the ketua sayap, wanita, pemuda, and putri. So by joining all them together of the Supreme Council, I think it's going to be a very, very interesting Supreme Council indeed. It will not be a rubber stamp committee member. It will be, I think, a sort of rejuvenation or reformation for UMNO, because I presume that a lot of good things, strategies, policies that will come from this bunch of Supreme Council members.
What is crucial now, according to Asmi, is for the Supreme Council to focus on new strategies for the upcoming state elections.
I think the most important thing is that the old narrative, especially by veteran UMNO, when they want to convince outsiders to support UMNO, they will use old methods. I think the current Supreme Council will use contemporary methods, something that are very current. When they are talking to the youngsters, there are strategies, ways to talk to the youngsters. When they are talking to the, let's say, the urban elite voters, there are ways to it. So I guess these are the teething problem, because UMNO don't have any, what, as I see it, a think tank that produce strategies. I think this particular Supreme Council can do the job.
The Transport Minister said he has yet to receive any official application from the Kedah state government to build a new aviation hub dubbed the Kedah Aerotropolis. Anthony Loke, speaking at the Dewan Rakyat today, said that the plan to establish and build an aerodrome required permission from the ministry, supported by comprehensive documents and information. Now, in this regard, he said there was no question of the government rejecting the proposed development of the project and urged for the issue not to be politicized.
Jadi belum ada permohonan rasmi kepada Menteri Pengangkutan untuk mendapatkan kebenaran aerodrom. Laporan-laporan yang diberikan ataupun permohonan yang pernah diberikan ataupun kerurusan yang pernah diberikan adalah hanya secara prinsip oleh pihak Majlis Perancangan Fizikal Negara. Belum ada sebarang permohonan aerodrom daripada Menteri Pengangkutan sebab ulasan-ulasan belum diberikan kebenaran oleh pihak kementerian.
Loke said the ministry wanted to facilitate the construction of the proposed Kedah Aerotropolis subject to findings of the National Airport Strategic Plan. Loke also urged the Kedah government to list the investors and proposed operators for the project. According to Loke, there were only two airport operators in the country, with Malaysia Airport Holdings Berhad (MAHB) operating most of the airports and another company operating Johor's Senai Airport. Separately, Anthony Loke said that the Kuala Lumpur International Airport (KLIA) must be restored to its former glory and made great again. Acknowledging the problems at the terminal, Loke said that he was unhappy with the latest ranking of the airport. According to Skytrack's World's Top 100 Airports for 2023, KLIA dropped 5 spots to 67th place. Lok said returning KLIA to the top 10 rankings is one of the KPIs for his ministry as well as MAHB. Since the inception of the rankings in 1999, KLIA has emerged among the top 10 on 4 separate occasions. The highest was second place in 2001. But its rankings had steadily declined year after year since 2012. According to Skytrack's website, the customer-driven rankings take into account a multitude of factors, including shopping, check-ins, arrivals, transfers, security and immigration. Lok said MAHB has already started upgrading works and will continue gradually. The Irrigation and Drainage Department is building 526 flood warning siren stations in hotspots across the country. Natural Resources, Environment and Climate Change Minister Nik Nazmi Ahmad says that the sirens will be installed in phases. Nik Nazmi said the Irrigation and Drainage Department is currently using the National Flood Forecasting and Warning System to track rainfall and water levels in real time. He explained the system was able to carry out 7 days of flood simulations and issue warnings up to 2 days ahead. Phase 1 of the program, which involves Kelantan, Terengganu and Pahang river basins, have been operational since 2017, while Phase 2, involving 38 river basins nationwide, will be completed in stages and is expected to be fully operational in 2025. Nik Nazmi added that his ministry was also considering the use of SMS and WhatsApp to issue flood warnings to potential victims. The Ministry of Domestic Trade and Cost of Living is planning to introduce the Insurance Rama initiative to provide affordable protection rates for the people. Its Minister, Datuk Sri Salahuddin Ayub, says that thus far, one insurance company has given a positive response regarding the proposal.
According to him, the first to respond was Etika Insurance. When asked about other insurance companies that may be interested in the initiative, Salahuddin said he was confident that more companies would participate based on the domino effect that was proven after the Menu Rahmah initiative was first introduced. Meanwhile, Salahuddin said the government will also launch the Rahmah Sales Initiative for Idul Fitri at a textile store this Wednesday. He said the initiative received an encouraging response from textile stores such as Maidin Supermarket, which offers baju raya for as low as 30 ringgit, while Jackal offers discounts of up to 50% for baju raya. Salahuddin added that this is good news for the people ahead of Raya celebrations, as he was informed that several hypermarkets will also continue to sell the price of basic goods with the Rahmah sales.
Let's take a quick break. Stay tuned for more.
Macam mana nak berniaga kalau sering berdepan gangguan internet dan ancaman cyber? Dengan penyelesaian Maxis Business, anda pasti boleh. Berniaga di mana saja, bila-bila masa, dengan panggilan dan data tanpa had, walau anda berada di luar pejabat. Anda tidak perlu risau lagi dengan perlindungan cyber yang hebat. Miliki pelan Maxis Business Postpaid dan Fiber hari ini.
Welcome back. Thailand's election season officially began following the announcement ordering the dissolution of parliament today. The order, submitted by Prime Minister Prayut Chan-o-cha last week for royal endorsement, paves the way for a general election that is expected to take place in May. The Election Commission has tentatively set the date as May 7th, but election law stipulates that the vote must take place within 60 days after the dissolution. However, Deputy Prime Minister Wisanu Kriangam earlier in the day said that it would likely be held on May 14th if the House were dissolved on Monday. The Commission will announce the confirmed poll date within 5 days of the dissolution order being confirmed. Registration of candidates will start after that, and an official list will be collated shortly after. Thailand's election is expected to showcase a long-running political battle between the country's conservative pro-military establishment and the billionaire Shinawatra family. Paetongtarn Shinawatra, the daughter of ousted former Premier Thaksin, is the frontrunner to be Prime Minister in opinion surveys, with her support jumping 10 points to 38.2% in a poll released at the weekend. 36-year-old Paetongtarn is leading by a wide margin against opposition politician Pita Limjaroenrat, who heads the Move Forward party. He polled 15.75%, while incumbent Prime Minister Prayut Chan-o-cha trailed in third place with 15.65% in the survey. 68-year-old Prayut, who first came to power in a military coup in 2014, will run for re-election under a new party, United Thai Nation. Paetongtarn is the leader of the main opposition Pheu Thai party. She is the niece of Yingluck Shinawatra, who was forced from office by a court ruling in 2014, while her father Thaksin was ousted by a military coup in 2006. Both Yingluck and Thaksin live in exile. The opinion poll, which surveyed 2,000 voters across Thailand in March, also showed that nearly 50% of respondents said they would back candidates from the Pheu Thai party. Parties associated with the billionaire Shinawatra family have won the most seats in every elections since 2001. The family is loathed by the royalist military establishment, but remains incredibly popular in rural areas of the north and northeast. Chinese leader Xi Jinping has arrived in Moscow today on a three-day visit that offers strong political boost to Russian President Vladimir Putin as fighting in Ukraine grinds on. Both nations have described the trip as parts of efforts to deepen their no-limit friendship. The Kremlin has welcomed China's peace plan for Ukraine and said it would be discussed between Putin and Xi over dinner. Beijing has called for a ceasefire, but the U.S. has strongly rejected the idea as it effectively ratifies Russia's battleground gains in Ukraine. Xi's trip to Russia comes after the International Criminal Court on Friday issued a warrant for Putin's arrest on war crime charges. The Kremlin, which does not recognize the authority of the ICC, has rejected its move as legally null and void. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has announced a softening of his government's judicial overhaul plan after more than 2 months of nationwide protests. Netanyahu was set to ratify the reforms on April 2nd, but most will now be shelved until Parliament reconvenes on April 30th. The parts of the legislation that are still scheduled for ratification in the next 2 weeks would affect the country's method of selecting judges, which critics say is a move to curb the independence of the courts. Plans to overhaul the judicial system have triggered protests across the country, which have recently become violent as demonstrators clash with police. The changes would give the government full control over the committee which appoints judges and strip the Supreme Court of powers to strike down legislation. However, Netanyahu, who returned to power at the end of last year, has insisted his goal is balance among branches of government. He also called for a rethink by the political opposition, which has pledged to boycott ratification votes in parliament and encourage street demonstrations. Major cleanup efforts are underway in New South Wales, Australia, after millions of fish died in the Darling River near the town of Menindee. Authorities say that fishes will be cleared from high-density areas, but warn that it will not be possible to remove all of the carcasses. The deaths were determined to have been caused by hypoxic black water, a naturally occurring phenomenon which causes extreme low oxygen levels. State government agencies said they were releasing higher quality water to boost dissolved oxygen levels and work with federal agencies to find the underlying cause. An emergency hub has also been set up in Menindee to coordinate the response and monitor water quality. The ecosystem of Australia's third largest river has faced pressure from drought and increased human use in recent years, while last year brought severe flooding after intense rainfall and storms. The incident follows fish deaths in the same area in 2018 and 2019, where up to 1 million fish died from poor water flow and sudden temperature changes. That wraps up AWANI Tonight. I am Cynthia Ng. Thank you for watching. Good night.
Hello and good evening, I'm Melissa Idris. Welcome to Consider This. This is the show where we want you to consider and then reconsider what you know of the news of the day. Malaysia's labour system has for decades permitted forced labour practices to become entrenched. Forced labour isn't just about the physical intimidation or restraint of a victim, but it also includes withholding passports, abusive working conditions and living conditions, withholding of wages, and even excessive overtime. Now, in late 2001, Malaysia launched our first ever national action plan on forced labour. It was widely lauded as a step towards ending the practices of forced labour in the country. But can we realise these aspirations by 2030? Now, my first guest on the show is Adrian Pereira. He is the Executive Director of North-South Initiative, which is a migrant and refugee rights NGO. Adrian, thank you for joining me on the show today. Malaysia, it seems, keeps repeating this cycle of a round of recruitment of migrant workers and then undocumented workers builds up. And then we have this purge, a crackdown, mass detentions, and then we expulsion or send them back to their source country. This repeats every few years. The question is, why do we keep falling into this cyclical trap? And Adrian, what has been the repercussions of this very reactive approach to policy making about migrant workers?
Yeah, so this is the strange thing when it comes to migrant workers, where it's the issue is looked both as a labor supply purpose and also as a security matter, and because there's two different angles of looking at it in terms of governance, then in the past we have seen two different ministries overlooking one issue, and that has led to certain complications, conflict of interest, and hence the past two ministers have actually proposed that to avoid this